Hello, fellow readers and booktubers. It is Poetry Thursday, and I would like to read a couple of poems by Wendell Berry from his collection, The Peace of Wild Things. Now, I would suspect that most of you, if not all of you, have heard of Wendell Berry. If you have never heard of him, I'd really be surprised. He's been around for a very long time and a remarkably prolific writer. He once described himself as, and this is a quote directly from Wendell Berry, he described himself as, quote, a farmer of sorts and an artist of sorts. As I said, he nails it. I mean, he knows who he is. A prolific American writer, essayist, novelist, and he is a farmer. He's lived in Kentucky for over 50 years with his wife and his children and his grandchildren. And of course, he's a poet, a lifelong activist. It would seem that throughout his life, he's always he's always with the good guys. He's on the right side of history, as some people would say, most particularly in his support of activism regarding the environment. He was an environmentalist before it became the cool thing to be, and he still is to this day. He loves the land, he understands the land, or tries to understand it, and he understands how a big part of human existence is our relationship to the world around us. Barry's received a lot of fellowships, including one from the National Endowment of Arts and a National Humanities Award for Lifelong Achievement. And I was happy and relieved to discover that he is still with us. He's 90 years old by last count, and as far as I can tell, he's still very active, at least intellectually as sharp as ever. There was a recent essay about Berry in America magazine. It was written by James Keane. I'm going to put a link to it below here when I finish making this video, because the essay is very, very good. But the reason I'm mentioning it is I love the title of the essay. The title of this essay by James Keane was Wendell Berry, the cranky farmer, poet, and essayist you can't ignore. And one of the reasons you can't ignore Berry is just because he's such a good writer, a real writer. I think of another great American writer, John Williams, who I've mentioned a few times in the past. Berry is certainly of that caliber, maybe even better. And he's a good writer with that uniquely American voice. Directly to the point, clear, concise, no unnecessary words, very commonsensical, somewhat stoic, not entirely though. You get the feeling that he does not suffer fools gladly, but at the same time, there's a warmth there, an empathy, an understanding for others, and the importance of the individual and the importance of nature. Just a remarkable author. I first came to Berry through his essays. It wasn't until later that I began to read his poetry, which I found equally impressive, which brings us back to Poetry Thursday and Wendell Berry's The Peace of Wild Things. There's two poems in here I'd like to read. One of them is the title poem, and I'd like to read that now. The title poem, The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I awake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting for their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world, and am free. That's Wendell Berry. The other poem is called Do Not Be Ashamed. I was familiar with this poem. Wendell Berry I returned to again and again throughout my life, and I was familiar with this poem. This next poem, it was written in 1968 or 69, somewhere in there, when the country was in incredible turmoil, a lot of rioting, a lot of anger. The Vietnam War was raging. Richard Nixon was about to begin his career in presidential criminality. That demographic bulge in age had come of age, and there were students angry in the universities and colleges and angry about everything. Racial tensions in the country were often flaring up into violence and burnings of cities and all of this. It's a very, very difficult time. And this poem called Do Not Be Ashamed, I wouldn't exactly say that Wendell Berry is giving advice in this poem. I think what he is doing is suggesting a way that one can live during turmoil and maintain your dignity in the face of this turmoil. And what really struck me about this poem when I read it again very recently is how it seems more relevant today than it did when it was written. The poem, it was almost prescient. Things were bad when Barry wrote this. Things are much worse now, and the country is sliding into a horrible dark age. And what do you do about that? So this is "Do Not Be Ashamed" by Wendell Berry. You will be walking some night in the comfortable dark of your yard, and suddenly a great light will shine round about you, and behind you will be a wall you never saw before. It will be clear to you suddenly that you were about to escape and that you are guilty. You misread the complex instructions. You are not a member. You lost your card or never had one. And you will know that they have been there all along, their eyes on your letters and books, their hands in your pockets, their ears wired to your bed. Though you have done nothing shameful, they will want you to be ashamed. They will want you to kneel and weep and say that you should have been like them. And once you say you are ashamed, reading the page they hold out to you, then such light as you have made in your history will leave you. They will no longer need to pursue you. You will pursue them, begging forgiveness. They will not forgive you. There is no power against them. It is only candor that is aloof from them, only an inward clarity, unashamed, that they cannot reach. Be ready. When their light has picked you out and their questions are asked, say to them, I am not ashamed. A sure horizon will come around you. The heron will begin his evening flight from the hilltop. That's what I've got for you today, folks. Enjoy your Poetry Thursday, and I'll be speaking to you again very soon.